She sat in the back row, clutching her notebook so tightly, her knuckles turned white. Her heartbeat drowned out the teacher's voice. Every glance, every whisper in the classroom felt aimed at her, even though no one had spoken it aloud yet. Lisa inhaled sharply, trying to swallow the panic and disguise it as boredom. But her body betrayed her. The room smelled faintly of chalk and the floral perfume of the girls in the front row. Stripes of sunlight cut through the blinds, laying across her pale face, highlighting the tired shadows beneath her eyes. At just 18, she was already carrying a weight that could break anyone. Lisa had grown up without parents. Her father had disappeared before she was born. Her mother left when she was 6. It was her grandmother, with her strong hands and stern eyes, who had raised her. That woman kept food on the table, made sure Lisa did her homework, and repeated the same phrase every night. "You are all I have, Lisa. Don't throw your life away." And yet here she was, pregnant, a secret swelling beneath her oversized hoodie. When the bell rang, her classmates burst into chatter, chairs scraping against the floor, laughter spilling out into the hallway. Lisa stayed seated, pretending to check her notes, waiting until most of them were gone. She avoided the mirrors in the bathroom, kept her head down at lunch, and walked the long way home to avoid questions. At home, her grandmother's presence was both comfort and threat. The old woman noticed everything: a missing button, a late assignment, a sigh too heavy at the dinner table. But somehow Lisa had managed to keep this secret for weeks. Baggy clothes, careful excuses, always rushing upstairs before her grandmother could look too closely. Still, the distance between them grew heavier every day. Her grandmother would call her name, and Lisa would respond too quickly, too sharply, making the woman's eyes narrow with suspicion. At night, Lisa lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her hands on her stomach, listening to the creaks of the old house. She imagined the moment when the truth would break free, and feared it more than anything. At school, the whispers had already begun. 2 girls giggled when Lisa walked past them in the hallway, their eyes scanning her figure. In gym class, she faked cramps to avoid changing clothes. A boy she barely knew muttered under his breath, "Getting fat, huh?" The words burned hotter than fire, but she didn't turn around. The hardest part wasn't the fear of being caught. It was the loneliness. The boy responsible had vanished after a single text. Not my problem. His number blocked her. His face avoided hers in the cafeteria. Lisa carried not just the child, but also the silence of betrayal. That night, while her grandmother watched the evening news with the volume turned high, Lisa stood barefoot in the bathroom, hoodie lifted just enough for the mirror to reflect what she had tried so hard to hide. Her stomach curved softly outward now, no longer just something she could ignore. Her throat tightened. She pressed her hand against the cold sink and whispered, "What am I going to do?" No answer came, only the faint sound of her grandmother's cough from the living room. Lisa let the hoodie fall back into place, wiped her face with the sleeve, and forced herself to walk out as if nothing had happened. But inside, every step felt like a countdown. The next morning, Lisa moved slower than usual. Her grandmother called from the kitchen, her voice rough from years of cigarettes and hard winters. "Lisa, you'll be late again. Eat something before you go." Lisa tightened the straps of her backpack and forced herself downstairs. The kitchen smelled of fried eggs and black coffee. Her grandmother was seated at the table, hair pulled back in a silver bun. Her reading glasses perched on her nose as she scanned the newspaper. Her gaze flicked up when Lisa entered. "You're looking pale," she said. "Not enough sleep again?" Lisa grabbed a piece of toast and shrugged. "Studying?" Her grandmother hummed, unconvinced, but didn't push further. That was her way. Direct, blunt, but not cruel. Lisa wanted to tell her, sometimes almost opened her mouth to confess, but the words always lodged in her throat. She was terrified of the disappointment in those steel-gray eyes. At school, the day felt heavier than usual. During history class, the teacher's eyes lingered on her. After the bell, he cleared his throat. "Lisa, could you stay for a moment?" The classroom emptied. She stood frozen, one hand gripping her desk. He leaned against the edge of his desk, folding his arms. "I've noticed you seem distracted lately. Tired. You're a good student, but you're slipping. Is something wrong at home?" Lisa shook her head too quickly. "No, everything's fine." He studied her, unconvinced. "If there's something you need help with, academic or personal, you can talk to the school counselor. You don't have to carry everything alone." Her chest tightened. She nodded once, whispered, "Thanks," and rushed out before he could ask more. By the time she reached the girls' bathroom, her eyes were burning. She locked herself in a stall and pressed her forehead against the cool metal door. She wanted to scream, but instead she swallowed it, like she swallowed everything else. At lunch, she sat at the edge of the cafeteria, head bent low. 2 tables away, she heard her name hissed between whispers. "Look at her, always hiding in that hoodie." A laugh followed. Lisa forced herself to chew her sandwich, but each bite turned to stone in her mouth. She thought of the boy again, how easily he had slipped away from responsibility. She imagined confronting him, yelling, telling the whole school it wasn't just her mistake. But she stayed silent. She always did. When the final bell rang, she walked home slowly, dragging her feet on the cracked pavement. The air was crisp, the kind of cold that slipped under your skin. Leaves skittered across the sidewalk. She stopped at a convenience store, buying nothing, just staring blankly at the shelves of baby formula and diapers near the back. The sight made her stomach clench. At home, her grandmother was waiting, arms crossed. "You're late." "I had to finish an assignment," Lisa lied, slipping past her. She could feel her grandmother's eyes drilling into her back. Later that evening, Lisa lay in her room, the house quiet, except for the ticking of the old clock downstairs. She pulled her hoodie tighter, even though no one was watching. Her grandmother's footsteps creaked once in the hallway, then faded. Lisa turned off the light and curled onto her side. Her hand rested instinctively on her stomach. A small, fluttering movement startled her. It wasn't just hers anymore. It was real. She bit her lip, tears sliding silently onto her pillow. The secret was growing, and soon no hoodie, no silence, no lies would be able to hide it. The week dragged on, each day heavier than the last. Lisa's body was no longer a secret she could ignore. Her clothes fit differently. Her walk had slowed. No matter how tightly she pulled her hoodie, it wasn't enough. It happened on a Wednesday during gym class. "Everyone line up," the coach barked, blowing his whistle. Lisa slipped to the back, clutching her arms across her chest. The locker room had been the worst part. She'd pretended to have cramps again, avoiding changing in front of anyone. As the class jogged around the track, Lisa struggled to keep up. Her breath came shallow, her legs weak. A stitch stabbed her side, but she pushed forward, praying no one noticed. Then she heard it. "Hey, Lisa!" A boy's voice jeered from the bleachers. "What's with the hoodie? You hiding a beer belly?" Laughter erupted, sharp and cruel. Someone else added, "Or maybe she's hiding more than that." The words sliced through her like glass. She kept her eyes on the ground, but her cheeks burned. Her steps faltered. The world tilted. By the time she reached the edge of the field, her vision blurred. The last thing she felt was the cold floor of the gym hallway as she collapsed. When she woke, everything was white and sterile. A monitor beeped softly beside her. The smell of antiseptic stung her nose. Panic shot through her chest. She tried to sit up, but a hand pressed gently on her arm. "Lisa, don't move too fast." It was her grandmother. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with something between fear and fury. Lisa's throat went dry. The truth had spilled out without her saying a word. The doctor's voice followed, calm and clinical. "She's stable. The fainting was from exhaustion, dehydration. But the pregnancy complicates things. She needs rest, proper nutrition, and medical supervision from now on." The word pregnancy hung in the air like a thunderclap. Her grandmother didn't look at the doctor. Her eyes stayed fixed on Lisa, hard and searching. "A pregnancy?" she repeated, her voice flat, as if testing whether the word was real. Lisa's lips trembled. "Grandma, I—" But her grandmother stood up, her chair scraping against the linoleum. Her jaw tightened, her eyes glistening with a hurt that cut deeper than anger. "How long?" Lisa whispered. "A few months." Her grandmother's hand went to her forehead, rubbing as though she could erase the truth. For a long moment, the room was silent, except for the steady beep of the monitor. Then she said, in a voice low but sharp, "After everything I've done for you, after every warning I gave you." Tears spilled down Lisa's cheeks. She wanted to reach for her, to beg for comfort, but the distance between them felt like a wall. The doctor excused himself quietly, leaving them alone. Lisa lay frozen, staring at her grandmother's rigid shoulders. Finally, the old woman turned back, her face lined with more sorrow than Lisa had ever seen. "We'll talk at home." Lisa nodded weakly. She knew what was coming, the storm she had dreaded for weeks. That night, when they returned to the small, creaking house, the silence was heavier than any argument. Her grandmother set her bag down, her hands trembling slightly, and finally spoke. "You've ruined everything, Lisa. Do you understand? Everything I worked for, everything I sacrificed." Lisa broke then, sobs ripping through her. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I was alone. I didn't know." Her grandmother's voice cracked, rising, then falling. "You had me. You always had me. And now—" She trailed off, shaking her head. Lisa's tears blurred the room. She wanted to scream that it wasn't fair, that she hadn't asked to grow up without parents, that she hadn't asked for this crushing loneliness. But the words never came. The only sound left was the clock ticking in the corner, each second a reminder that nothing would ever be the same again. The fight erupted the next morning. Lisa sat at the kitchen table, staring into a bowl of cereal gone soggy. Her grandmother stood by the sink, arms folded across her chest, her silhouette rigid against the pale light of dawn. "We need to talk," her grandmother said finally, her voice firm but quieter than last night. "No more lies." Lisa nodded slowly, her throat tight. "Who is he?" The question hit like a stone. Lisa dropped her spoon, milk splashing onto the table. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her grandmother's eyes sharpened. "Tell me," Lisa whispered. "It doesn't matter. He's gone." The old woman slammed her palm against the counter. "It does matter. A child doesn't come from nowhere. He should be here, facing what he's done." Lisa's eyes filled. "He doesn't care. He said it wasn't his problem. He blocked me. He's gone." Silence hung heavy in the room. Her grandmother's chest rose and fell, her face twisted with anger. But underneath it, Lisa saw something else: fear. "You're 18, Lisa," her grandmother said finally, softer now. "You had your whole life ahead of you. University, a career, a future. And now," her voice broke slightly, "now, you've tied yourself to this mistake." Lisa's tears spilled over. "Don't call it that." Her grandmother blinked, startled. Lisa pressed a trembling hand against her stomach. "Don't call it a mistake. It's mine. I didn't choose this, but it's mine now." For a moment, The old woman just stared. Then she shook her head, her expression closing like a door. You don't understand the world, Lisa. You don't know what's coming. The whispers, the shame, the struggle. You think love alone will save you? Lisa stood abruptly, the chair scraping across the floor. I'm not asking for your permission. I'm not asking for your blessing. I just need you to not hate me. Her grandmother's mouth opened, but no words came. The lines on her face deepened, her eyes glistened, but she turned away, staring out the window at the gray, empty street. Lisa fled to her room, slamming the door shut. She threw herself onto the bed, sobbing into the pillow until her throat ached. Memories crashed through her. Her first kiss behind the school gym, the boy's soft promises that he'd always be there, the thrill of feeling wanted for once in her life. And then the silence that followed, the texts unanswered, the way he'd walked past her in the hall, like she didn't exist. The betrayal burned, but worse was the loneliness, the weight of carrying everything alone. Hours passed. When the house grew quiet, Lisa crept to the bathroom, locking the door behind her. She stood before the mirror, lifting her shirt just enough to see. Her stomach curved gently, undeniable now. She touched the glass with her fingertips, tracing her own reflection. Her face looked older, her eyes tired. She barely recognized herself. Whispering, she asked the empty room, "Am I strong enough?" No answer came, only the sound of her own breath echoing back. That night, lying awake, Lisa heard her grandmother moving through the house, a creak on the stairs, the shuffle of slippers across the floor. She imagined her sitting in the living room, clutching her coffee mug, staring into the dark, wondering where she had gone wrong. And Lisa wondered too, not just about her grandmother, but about herself. Could she do this? Could she carry life inside her while her own felt so fragile? Her hand drifted back to her stomach. Despite everything, the anger, the fear, the shame, there was a faint flicker inside her, something she couldn't quite name. Not hope, not yet, but something that refused to be extinguished. The following days were a blur of tension. Every word at home carried weight. Every silence screamed louder than shouting. Lisa and her grandmother moved around each other like shadows, careful not to collide, careful not to reopen the wound. But outside the house, the world was less forgiving. At school, the whispers grew sharper. Lisa felt eyes on her wherever she went. In the cafeteria, in the hallways, even in class, when she tried to focus on the board. One afternoon, as she walked down the corridor, a girl's voice rang out just loud enough for everyone to hear. "Better study diapers instead of math, Lisa." Laughter followed. Lisa froze, heat flooding her cheeks, before hurrying past with her head bowed. She wanted to disappear. The principal called her in a week later. His office smelled of leather and dust, lined with certificates and photographs. He gestured for her to sit. "Lisa," he began, his tone heavy with rehearsed sympathy. "We've noticed some changes, and while we don't wish to intrude, the school has its reputation to consider. If students become a distraction, we have to act in the best interest of the whole." Her stomach clenched. "What are you saying?" He folded his hands. "Perhaps it would be wise to consider online classes for the remainder of the year. For your own comfort, of course." The words hit like a dismissal. Lisa left the office numb, clutching her backpack straps so tightly they dug into her shoulders. At home that evening, her grandmother was waiting at the table, an unopened letter beside her. Lisa knew the envelope, the university she'd applied to months ago. Her chest tightened. Her grandmother pushed it forward. It came today. Lisa tore it open, her hands shaking. The words blurred as she read. "We regret to inform you." Her throat closed. Her dream, gone in a single sentence. Her grandmother exhaled, long and heavy. "Do you see now? This is what happens. One choice and doors slam shut." Lisa couldn't bear it. She stood, storming upstairs, the letter crumpled in her fist. In her room, she collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling through tears. For the first time, she thought about giving the baby up. Maybe adoption, maybe something else. Maybe if she let go, her life could go back to what it was supposed to be. But then, in the quiet, she felt it, a flutter inside her, delicate but undeniable. She froze, her hand pressing against her stomach. The tiny movement was like a whisper, reminding her it wasn't just a burden. It was life. The thought both terrified and anchored her. Later that night, she heard her grandmother on the phone, speaking in hushed tones. "She's just a child herself. I don't know what to do with her. Yes, I'm scared for her. I'm scared for both of us." Lisa pressed her ear to the door, her heart aching. For the first time, she realized the old woman's anger wasn't just fury. It was fear. But fear didn't stop the stares, the whispers, the pressure. Lisa lay awake, torn between two futures, one where she gave up the baby and reclaimed her life, and one where she fought to keep it, no matter how hard the world pushed back. She didn't know which path she'd take. She only knew she was running out of time. The night of the storm, Lisa's labor began. Rain hammered against the windows of the small house, wind rattling the shutters. Lisa doubled over in her bedroom, clutching the edge of the bed as pain tore through her. Her cries brought her grandmother running, fear flashing across her face. "It's too early," her grandmother whispered, but there was no stopping it. She grabbed the phone, calling for an ambulance, her voice trembling despite her steady hands. Minutes blurred into chaos. The ride to the hospital was a haze of flashing lights and shallow breaths. Lisa clung to her grandmother's hand, sweat pouring down her temples. For all the months of anger and silence, in that moment, her grandmother didn't let go. "Breathe, Lisa must stay with me." Hours later, in a sterile delivery room, the world narrowed to pain, voices, and the sound of her own heartbeat. And then, suddenly, there was another sound, a cry, thin but strong, cutting through everything. The nurse placed the baby in Lisa's arms. A girl, tiny, red-faced, fists clenched, as if already ready to fight the world. Lisa stared, her tears blurring the small face pressed against her chest. For a moment, all the shame, the whispers, the fear dissolved. There was only this, fragile, perfect life breathing against her. Her grandmother stood at the foot of the bed, silent, eyes glistening. Slowly, she stepped closer. Her hand trembled as she reached out, brushing the baby's cheek with a fingertip. She's beautiful," the old woman whispered, her voice breaking. Lisa looked up, meeting her grandmother's eyes. For the first time in months, there was no anger there. Only love, raw and exhausted. Back home, the house felt different. The walls no longer echoed with silence, but with the soft cries of a newborn. The nights were long, the struggles immediate. Diapers, bottles, sleepless hours. Lisa often felt she was drowning, but she was not alone. Her grandmother rocked the baby at dawn, when Lisa's body couldn't take another hour awake. She cooked warm meals, her stern hands gentler now, as she tucked blankets around both granddaughter and great-grandchild. Neighbors whispered, yes. Some judged, some turned away. But others brought casseroles, hand-me-down clothes, quiet encouragement. Slowly, the shame Lisa had carried began to loosen its grip. One evening, as Lisa stood by the window holding her daughter, her grandmother came beside her. The two of them watched the streetlights flicker on, their reflections faint in the glass. "You know," her grandmother said softly, "I was wrong to call it a mistake. Life is never a mistake, no matter how it begins. Lisa swallowed hard, her throat tight. "I thought you hated me." Her grandmother shook her head, tears shining in her tired eyes. "I was afraid. Afraid you'd end up broken. Afraid I'd lose you like I lost your mother. But seeing you now, you're stronger than I ever was." Lisa leaned her head against her grandmother's shoulder. The baby nestled between them. For the first time in so long, she felt steady. Her future was no longer the one she'd imagined. No college dorms, no carefree youth. It would be harder, heavier. But as she looked at her daughter's tiny hand, wrapped around her finger, she understood something new. She hadn't lost her life. She had found a new one. And this time, she wouldn't face it alone.